all over the world is not buying that story. This is the US corporate media. I heard from a friend in India who said the headlines in all the mainstream newspapers in India were celebrating the close down of WTO meetings yesterday.
On the violence and the destruction of property, you know, not on the issues that people are out here demonstrating about. You know, the media has intentionally just glossed that over.
Someone's down, trying to get up.
Just totally ignored it. That's what the real problem is out here. The people don't have a voice to express, you know, their griefs.
During this interview, Jeff, I'm very happy that you came down to talk about the Independent Media Center. There are a number of questions I want to ask you, and to begin with, can you please tell us how large is the IMC?
Right. Well, right now the Independent Media Center has about 35 to 55 volunteers. They're plugging in a variety of ways. And there's probably, I'd say, about 4 to 5 folks who are kind of holding down the core of the daily operations in the physical space. But it's also important to mention that part of what made the Media Center successful in its infancy and its kind of its birth and its genesis during the World Trade Organization talks in the fall of '99, November, was that over 450 people plugged in from all over the USA and from about 9 different countries as well. So we stayed connected with those folks, you know, as they returned back home, so that we're building this independent media network. So it actually is a very, very broad project as far as its scope, mission, and then as far as participation for different folks.
Currently, how many offices do you have?
We have one downtown space in downtown Seattle on 3rd Avenue. It's about 2,700 square feet. And that's where the Media Center's base of operations has been since WTO. During that week, when we were covering all sorts of events, we had 2 other locations, actually 3 other locations, a video editing space, a house up in Queen Anne. We had Studio X, which was an audio production facility in Belltown. Then we're using also the Benham Gallery, which is a photo gallery down on 1st Avenue by the Seattle Art Museum for some production and stuff as well. But right now we're consolidated back to our main 3rd Avenue space.
And can you tell me, how did it get organized? What's actually the history behind the Independent Media Center?
Yeah, well, it was an amazing history that was very much, it was forged in kind of a state of crisis, because we found out about 8 weeks before the WTO came to town, came to Seattle in November '99. We, myself and a few other folks, kind of a core of 3 people, realized that there wasn't really a forum for folks from the grassroots, folks in their communities to have their voices heard, get those stories out to the world outside of corporate commercial channels. And we also recognized there would be lots of people coming from all over the world, from all over the country here to tell their stories, and they were also going to need a forum and platform. All these bright, articulate folks were coming with an important message to get out. So we were kind of in a rush phase. We realized about 8 weeks before, like I said, when we needed to be ready, that we needed to put something together. At that point, we didn't have an organizational infrastructure, we didn't have any funding, we didn't have a physical space or any technology. So the development of the organization was really a very much accelerated sort of process at that point. And now what we're doing is, since the WTO has left town, and since we had this significant success, is spending some time to really evaluate our process and our organizational structure over the last 3 months and make sure that it's a structure that's sustainable for the long term. We want to be a permanent resource for communities of action and resistance here in Seattle, and as well part of this international network that's developing. So the structure and development is very much in process at the moment, and has really been very much an inclusive process. It's been open to people to participate in. We've used consensus decision making, which we feel is a very powerful way of making sure that people's voices are heard throughout, and recognizing that everyone has a certain piece of the truth or a certain piece of knowledge that they can bring to help the whole group make a powerful decision. So that's part of the process that we use to continue to move forward in this completely historic and unique project that really has not happened anywhere else around the world yet, and also that people nationally and internationally are looking to as a model. So it's very exciting, and it is an ongoing process.
What kinds of technology is your company or your organization rather primarily using or concerned with?
Well, the internet has been kind of the backbone of our distribution mechanism for getting the stories out locally, nationally, and internationally. That was really one of the main focuses during the WTO, was making sure that the good work that people were doing who had come together to raise their voices was getting out all over and really rippling outward and having a powerful effect nationally and internationally. So the internet has been a very valuable tool for that, but we also recognize that the internet really plays into a lot of the divides that we have as far as technology in our society and internationally as far as the haves and have-nots sort of situation, where folks who are better resourced for a number of reasons have access to the internet, and they have access to high-speed connections to the internet, and communities that have traditionally been left out of a lot of these discussions and dialogue and media making, similarly, you know, as in past history, are left out of this technology. So one thing that we've really tried to do is link up these newer, more expensive, high technologies with a lot of the kind of old school, more accessible, lower technologies. And I'm going to give two quick examples. One being that while we posted all of our pieces to the internet, we also did a daily print run, a newspaper run of 1,500 here in Seattle that sold out every day, called the Blind Spot. The idea was that it would get out to folks right on the street. They didn't need to have a connection at home or a computer, be able to log on. They were getting it live and direct right to them. And we posted those on bus stops, just like they do in Havana and Mexico City and probably lots of other places. So folks don't have to, even when we only had money for 15 copies, 400 different people could hit that bus stop during the day and check out what was going on. So that's kind of that low technology. And the way that we paired that up with the higher technologies, we posted the content of the Blind Spot each day to our intranet site. And we got these reports that in Brussels, Belgium, and in Harare, and in Mexico City, that people who had access to the internet were pulling these pieces off and printing them on Xerox machines or photocopiers and distributing them in their local communities to people who, again, didn't need access to the internet. Similarly, we posted audio files and hooked up with community radio stations all around the world and let them know that these files were going to be coming in. So for example, Radio Havana in Cuba, they have an internet access in their studio. And so they would pull the audio files off in their studio and then broadcast on Radio Havana each night. And to 9 million people on the island who all have a $5 FM radio, but probably 90% of them don't have internet access. So really figuring out ways to link these technologies to much broader and democratic access to communities who may not be able to engage with the internet at this point, and really, again, ripple the power of these voices outward. So that's how we're using the technology.